Hey, what's going on, guys? Rome Gaming here. Before we get started, I just wanted to mention some of my socials in the description of the video. If you want to support the channel, please check those out. If you want to support the channel in other ways, please consider just dropping a like or a nice comment somewhere on the video. It really helps the algorithm push our content out there to a broader audience. With that being said, hope you guys enjoy the episode. Hey, what's going on, guys? Rome Gaming here, back into the video. Today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at Holy Priest going into Season 1 of War Within for Mythic Plus. So this guide is going to focus specifically on Mythic Plus. I'm not a raider or a PvPer, so we're just going to kind of focus specifically on Mythic Plus in this video. All right, now let's quickly talk about hero talents. So we're just going to cover the Oracle tree. It is performing better for Mythic Plus, and then the Archon tree is performing a little bit better in raid environments. So if you're not familiar with the new hero tree talents, let's just kind of walk through them real quick. We can kind of talk about how some of these things synergize with our normal talent tree. Then from there, we can kind of dive into the talents, spells, rotation, all that good stuff. So top of the tree here, we have Premonition. So you have three different sort of charges of Premonition that you kind of rotate through. So we have Premonition of Insight, then we have Premonition of Piety, and Premonition of Solace at the bottom. So starting with Insight here, it reduces the cooldown of your next 3 spell casts by 9.8 seconds. So depending on how you want to use this CDR, if you want to do a lot of damage with it, you could put that into something like Holy Fire. You can do a lot of healing with it. You can put that into something like your Holy Word Serenity. We also have our Premonition of Piety here in the middle. So it increases your healing done by 21% and causes 98% of overhealing on players to be redistributed up to 4 nearby allies for 15 seconds. So this is actually a pretty crazy talent due to the overhealing that it does. So the way that you're supposed to play around Piety is you will use the charge, and then you can just kind of spam heal yourself, and then all that healing that you do on yourself is then redistributed out to your allies, right? Because it says 98% of overhealing on players can be redistributed up to 4 nearby allies. So that's really strong due to a couple of talents. So we have Premonition of Piety here. We have Fate Bender, which is going to increase the effect of our Premonition by 40%. So Piety now gets buffed by an additional 40% due to Fate Bender. And then on the left-hand side of the tree, we have Prophet's Will. So your Flash Heal, and Holy Word Serenity are 30% more effective when cast on yourself. So due to the synergy of these 3 talents, basically you can pop your Piety here, and you can just spam heal yourself, and you will get an insane amount of AoE group healing. Then down here at the very bottom, we have Premonition of Solace. So your next single target healing spell grants your target a shield that absorbs 1.6 million damage and reduces their damage taken by 21% for 15 seconds. So this is something that you can utilize kind of as something to save your tank if there's a big tank buster coming out, or you could also use this as an emergency button to put that big absorb shield on one of your DPS. Now here right below our top node Premonition, we have Preemptive Care, so increase the duration of Renew by 6 seconds. We're not casting Renew at any point in our rotation. Try to cover that a little bit later in the video, but really your Prayer of Mending is what's putting out all those renews. So getting increased duration on a renew is just kind of a nice added bonus. Top right here, we have Waste No Time. Premonition causes your next heal or Prayer of Mending heal to be instant cast and cost 15% less mana. Directly below that, Foreseen Circumstances. Guardian Spirit lasts an additional 2 seconds. Then we've already talked about Fate Bender here. We've already talked about Preemptive Care. Down here in the middle, Divine Feathers. Your Angelic Feathers increase movement speed by an additional 10%. Then when an ally walks through your Angelic Feather, you're also granted 100% of its effect. So this allows us to put our Angelic Feathers actually on a party member now, and then we also get the effect of the feather. So really nice to have this. Down here at the bottom, we have Divine Providence. So Premonition gains an additional charge, and this is going to be really handy to have 2 charges of Premonition, because let's just say for whatever reason, we're sitting on Premonition of Insight, and I want to get to Premonition of Piety as quickly as possible. I can use my Insight charge, and then I have a second charge waiting on me to use Premonition of Piety if I need to get to it quickly. Top left, we have Preventative Measures, so increases the healing done by Prayer of Mending by 25%. Then all damage dealt by Smite, Holy Fire, and Holy Nova increased by 25%. So just kind of a Path to Stats talent here. We also have Assured Safety, so Prayer of Mending casts apply a Power Word shield to your target at 100% effectiveness. So this is actually pretty nuts, because every time we throw out a Prayer of Mending, we're getting a group-wide Power Word shield. So this is just going to incentivize us even more to be pressing Prayer of Mending on cooldown. And then down here in the bottom left, we already kind of talked about Prophet's Will. Then in the very bottom, we have Clairvoyance. So Clairvoyance will actually happen right after you go through Premonition of Solace. And this is actually almost like a fourth charge. And what this does, or a fourth effect, and what this does is activates all three of the other effects at once at 100% effectiveness. So this will activate Insight, Piety, and Solace all at once. So very strong there. I think my only gripe with how Premonition works is it's like 4 spells in one, and it's kind of hard to know which one is doing what just based on the icon by itself. So if we look at my Shift 4 down there, this button here kind of flashing, you know, if I don't have a list up, I don't really know what the blue one is, the blue icon. So I'm sure I'll get more used to it over time, but it's kind of hard to tie the icon color to its specific effect. So it's like, oh yeah, the blue one's the shield. Oh yeah, the yellow one's the big AoE healing. It's just kind of difficult to get used to, I guess. Then one thing I also want to note on Premonition of Insight, on reducing the cooldown of your next 3 spell casts, this only affects spells that have a cooldown. So you can't accidentally like use this on a heal or something and like lose one of those 3 charges. So thankfully it is pretty smart, and it will only use one of your 3 charges if that spell actually has a cooldown associated with it. Again, I typically use it with something like my Holy Word Serenity or my Holy Word Sanctify. Okay, let's kind of talk about some of our core spells here for a minute. So the way Holy Priest plays is you kind of are focusing around your Holy Word. So we have 2. We have Holy Word Serenity and Holy Word Sanctify. And let's just kind of talk about these 2 by themselves first, and we'll kind of dive into the other stuff. So let me pull it up in our spellbook really quick. So Holy Word Serenity and Sanctify actually have 2 separate charges. So they each have 2 individual charges. So they don't share charges, thankfully. So you can kind of use them each by themselves as you see fit. But typically in a Mythic Plus environment, we're going to be focused on Holy Word Serenity. And Holy Word Serenity is a very, very big single target heal. And the whole idea of Holy Priest is to get this off cooldown as quickly as we possibly can. So you see it's on 1 minute cooldown, but in the white text below, the cooldown is reduced by 6 seconds when you cast Heal or Flash Heal. You get a max of 2 charges. So to quickly show you what this looks like, I'm going to cast Serenity on myself. We'll go through 2 charges. And then we see we have a 58-second cooldown. But if I use my Flash Heal, you can see the cooldown is now getting reduced. And just a few more casts of Flash Heal here, and it will be off cooldown again. So that right there in a nutshell is what you're trying to do with Holy Priest, is get that Serenity off cooldown, because it is such a strong, powerful heal. This can take people from 20% to 100% very easily. Then on the flip side of this, we have Holy Word Sanctify, and this is going to be more of an AoE focused Holy Word. And this is going to be like an AoE effect. So to show you what that looks like, you get a green little circle here, and you cast it, and it does a bunch of AoE healing. Now, if you kind of see at the bottom here in the white text, the cooldown is reduced by 6 seconds when you cast Prayer of Healing, and then 2 seconds when you cast Renew. So this is going to be a spell that we're not using a whole bunch, but it's nice to kind of have it in your back pocket, and this will push health bars up a little bit in AoE scenarios. So on that white text, just kind of going back to that, Prayer of Healing and Renew are 2 spells that we will not be casting at any point in our rotation. So this isn't something you should be focused on. You don't want to be trying to, reduce the cooldown on your Sanctify. Just use it when you have it. Okay, so we kind of took Sanctify off to the side here. I'm kind of done talking about it for now. Let's get back to Holy Word Serenity, since that's the main one we're focused on. So again, kind of like we just discussed, the whole idea is to get your Serenity off cooldown by spamming Flash Heals or by spamming heals. So the way that this is kind of played is through this Lightweaver talent. This is a passive effect. So Flash Heal reduces the cast time of your next heal within 20 seconds by 30% and increases its healing done by 25%, stacks up to 2 times. So this means that when you cast Flash Heal, you're now going to be getting a beefed up heal. And really what you want to be doing is you want to be rotating between the 2. And the reason you want to rotate between the 2 is because Flash Heal not only heals for more, Flash Heal is also a more efficient heal. So to kind of show you this gameplay loop, basically we're getting our Serenities off cooldown. We're Flash Healing twice. And you can see I got 2 charges on my heal here. So I want to use those 2 charges, 1, 2, get it back down to 0. See, I have a Serenity ready, so we'll use it. Now we go back into 2 flash heals, and then now we go into 2 heals. So this right here is kind of your core gameplay loop, right? You're using Serenities to spot heal, you're flash healing twice to get 2 charges through Lightweaver on your heal, you're spending those 2 heal charges, then you're kind of going back to see if you have a Serenity available. If not, then back into flash heals. Now we also, of course, have our prayer mending, and we kind of talked about this a little bit in our hero tree. So we have assured safety. So when your prayer mending goes out, it's going to be putting Power Word Shield on all your targets. So we've actually got a couple hidden things kind of going on in prayer mending. So first one here is your prayer mending has a 12% chance to leave a renew on each target it heals. So this is going to be pretty nice because this pairs up decently with that preemptive care that we talked about earlier. So we're able to get renews out without having to cast them ourselves. And we have a couple other small things down here that kind of do beef up our prayer of mending a little bit, such as like Voice of Harmony. So each bounce on our prayer of mending will actually reduce the cooldown of our Holy Word Serenity by 2 seconds, which is really nice. Just going to be another reason that we want to be using it on cooldown. And this is probably something I should have talked about probably like 60 seconds ago, like what prayer mending even is. So basically what this is this an ability that you throw out and it kind of bounces around like a boomerang in between your allies. So you throw it out and I think you guys can see this in the top right here, prayer mending. It has 7 charges and this will heal for a decent amount each time that target takes damage. Then it will bounce to another target to heal them. So I do believe that this is a smart heal and this will prioritize some of the lower health targets. But yeah, outside of that, I mean, that's your core rotation, those 4 buttons. This is why I typically recommend Holy Priest to beginner healers. They're just so straightforward. They're so easy to pick up. There's not a ton of button bloat going on, and it's just an overall very fun spec to play. Then one spell that I did forget to talk about here is Surge of Light. So your healing spells and Smite have an 8% chance to make your next flash heal instant and cost no mana. It stacks up to 2 charges. So you can actually get 2 of those icons around your character and store up to 2 instant cast Flash of Lights. Or excuse me, Flash Heals, not Flash of Lights. So, you know, just something that you will want to work in, and you can actually utilize those with Lightweaver as well. So if you do get really lucky and you get 2 back-to-back procs of Surge of Light, you can use those, then instantly have 2 stacks of your heal. Okay, up next, let's talk about stat priority. Normally I do stat priority before the rotational stuff. I just kind of forgot to include it here. So let's just kind of talk about what stats you should be focusing on. So don't pay any attention to my stats right now as they are. This is just kind of greens from the auction house. I just wanted to get my eye level high enough so I could kind of queue for Heroic Dungeon. So the main secondary stat that we're going to be focused on, I guess let's talk about the primary stat, intellect first, right? So typically you want eye level over anything, and the higher the eye level, typically the more intellect. So in almost all scenarios, you are prioritizing item level and intellect over any sort of secondary stat. But if you do have 2 pieces that have equal item level, then we can go down to secondary stats, and haste will be your main secondary stat. So haste is going to be our main secondary stat because this is going to reduce the GCD on pretty much all of our spells. And this is actually going to reduce the cooldown on certain spells. So certain spells like Prayer Mending here, you can see in the bottom right, has this green text on it that says 11-second cooldown. The more haste that you stack, the more CDR you will get out of spells that have green text kind of in their tooltip. So we can get Prayer Mending down to say like an 8, 9, 10-second cooldown if we stack up enough haste. And based on just what we kind of talked about, Prayer Mending is very core to our rotations. So haste is just very strong with Holy Priest. It synergizes with things like Renew. We get more Renew ticks with more haste, and we just overall cast our spells faster. Up next, we have Versatility. So Versatility is going to be pretty strong because this kind of gives you a good balance between damage, healing, and damage taken. So it's very important as a healer to stay alive in Mythic Plus dungeons. We are the second priority in terms of who needs to stay alive. Obviously, the tank is probably more priority than the healer, but being able to survive some of those burst windows is going to be very important. And Versatility is just kind of an easy stat to play around. And due to this being a percentage value, right, the higher and higher that you go into Mythic Plus keys, the better and better Versatility actually becomes. Our third priority and secondary stats will actually be critical strike. So when a spell does critical strike, it hits for twice the amount. And this is going to be really good due to our mastery. So mastery will actually be our fourth priority in stats. So let's just kind of talk about critical strike and mastery together. So I think Holy Priests actually have a pretty good mastery called Echo of Light. So direct healing spells heal for an additional 12.2% over 4 seconds. So when your spells critical strike, they have a chance to apply double the mastery, which is very nice because I feel like our mastery really kind of hardens those health bars a little bit and kind of keeps health bars from being so spiky. This is another reason that I kind of recommend Holy Priest over a lot of other beginner healers, because health bars just aren't quite as spiky on a Holy Priest as something like, let's just say, a Holy Paladin. Being able to have some of this ticking passive healing really helps keep health bars pushed up. Okay, now let's just kind of talk about utility, defensives, cooldowns, just kind of talk about them all together here. So we've already talked about Premonition of Insight through our hero talent, so I'm not going to talk about that. Let's talk about Divine Star really quick. So when you are playing Oracle, you're typically running something like Divine Star, at least in a Mythic Plus environment. And if you do ever decide to go Archon, you will be taking Halo. But Divine Star is on a very low cooldown, 15 seconds, and the way it works is you throw it out and it kind of boomerangs back to you. Kind of went under the ground there, but it damages and heals all allies within its path. So you kind of want to put this very close to something like a Prayer Mending. So these are going to be two spells that you just kind of want to rotate through, and you just, when they're off cooldown, you just kind of throw them out there. So not much thinking between these two, just throw them out there and let them do the hard work for you. Up next, we have Holy Word Chastise. So this is on a 1 minute cooldown, and we'll talk about this a little bit more once we get into the damage rotation. But basically the way this works is you throw it out there, it does a decent amount of damage. It also stuns the target, and through a couple other talents, this actually makes our Holy Fire instant cast. So Holy Word Chastise is actually going to be very core to our damage rotation, which we will talk about in the next section, but just know that this is one of our cooldowns. Now, one of your main cooldowns is going to be Apotheosis here on a 2 minute cooldown. So gain a charge of your Holy Words and enter a pure holy form for 20 seconds, increasing the cooldown reduction from your Holy Words by an additional 300% and reducing their cost by 100%. So just to kind of show you what this looks like, we will go into Apotheosis and we'll start spamming our Holy Word Serenity. And then we'll go into a flash heal, and that 300% CDR, just in a couple flash heals, we now have our Holy Word Serenity back. So this is going to be really big for those sort of burst healing scenarios. Then one thing that I did forget to talk about is Surge of Light here. So your healing spells and Smite have an 8% chance to make your next flash heal instant and cast no mana. Then one thing I did forget to talk about here is this Surge of Light proc. So when this little icon pops up, this means your next flash heal is instant cast, and you can kind of see it's glowing down here on my bars. And this is due to this talent over here in the bottom left, Surge of Light. Okay, up next we have a Guardian Spirit that we're running on a 3 minute cooldown. So it calls upon a Guardian Spirit to watch over the friendly target for 12 seconds, increasing healing received by 60%. If the target would die, the spirit sacrifices itself and restores the target to 40%. This is also castable while stunned. So the way this works is, let's just say I'm the tank, for example. I can cast the spell, you get these wings that will go on the back of the tank, and now he gets 60% additional healing. And if he were to die, the wings will actually go away, and it will basically sacrifice itself and restore the tank up to 40% health. Then probably your most important cooldown is going to be Power Infusion. It's the whole reason that people bring Priests to Mythic Plus dungeons, is because all the damage that we bring through Power Infusion. So this is going to increase haste by 20% when you cast it on an ally. So typically you want to throw this on your top DPS. And if you're also running Twin of the Sun Priestess here, you will also get the effect of Power Infusion when you put it on somebody else. This is really strong because this is basically like a 2-in-1 combo with one spell. This is probably the most powerful group utility in the game, maybe outside of certain class buffs, but very, very strong from both a damage and a healing throughput standpoint. And you want to make sure that you are casting this as often as possible throughout the dungeon. Then we of course have our dispels here. So we have Dispel Magic, and then if you need it, you can go into Improved Purify to remove all disease effects. Unfortunately, Holy Priest does not have a Poison Dispel, We do have Mass Dispel here, but unfortunately that only works on magic effects. So since we do not have any sort of poison dispel, it can be a little bit difficult for us, especially in Season 1 of War Within. Because I do believe that there are 5 dungeons in this rotation that kind of prefer a poison dispel. So since we don't bring that poison dispel, we'd have to run with something like a paladin or maybe a shaman to pick up that utility for us. However, Mass Dispel is still going to be very strong for us in Season 1 of War Within due to the Devour Affix. When that goes out, there will be a big shield that we have to heal through, and you could just simply Mass Dispel it, and we are one of the better healer specs to deal with that affix. Okay, I'm just going to talk about the last few little cooldowns here, and then we can kind of move on. So Fade, this is on a 30-second cooldown, and you want to be pressing this pretty often because we have a talent here, and this is called Translucent Image, and Fade is going to reduce all damage you take by 10%. So very strong ability. We do have some damage stuff that I'm going to talk about in the next section. We have Leap of Faith here. This is a talent. You can kind of pull a party member from damage, and you'll pull them to yourself, which is very nice. And then we also have Desperate Prayer here on the left. So this is going to basically be like a built-in heal for us, and I just put it right next to my health potion. And this is going to increase your maximum health by 40% for 10 seconds, and it will also heal you for that amount. So very, very strong spell. Oh, and of course, I missed our Power Word Fortitude. So this is our class buff, and you just press it, puts it on for an hour, and this will increase our stamina by 5% for the entire group. Then we also do have Soothe here, which is pretty important in Mythic Plus, especially in higher keys where skips are very common. You can Mind Soothe a target, and it will reduce their threat radius or their pull radius. And this will actually allow you to skip certain packs and dungeons. So a very important spell there as well. Now let's just kind of talk about a couple spells in regards to mana management. So we have Symbol of Hope here, 3-minute cooldown. So this is not only going to restore mana, but this is also going to help some of your party members recover a major defensive cooldown. So you really want to be pressing this pretty much as often as you can to get that CDR and those defensives, and then also getting that mana regen from it. And then we also have Shadow Fiend down here on the left-hand side. This is on a 3-minute cooldown, generates 0.5% of mana each time the Shadow Fiend attacks. Okay, that's pretty much it for cooldowns, defensives, and utility. Now let's kind of move on into our damage rotation. All right, so for damage rotation, we got a couple things kind of going on. We kind of talked about Holy Word Chastise earlier. This is going to be probably your main damage cooldown, and it's all going to kind of revolve around this one spell here. So to understand how this works, we have to go down into Imperial Blaze. So Holy Word Chastise causes your next 2 casts of Holy Fire to be instant cast, cost no mana, and incur no cooldown. Then if we go one more down, we also have Burning Vehemence. So it increases the damage done of Holy Fire by 30%, and then Holy Fire deals 75% of its initial damage to all nearby enemies within 12 yards of your target. So this is what turns Holy Fire into that big AoE damage. So I would say probably 80% of your damage rotation, if not more than that, is really just coming in here and pressing Holy Word Chastise and then putting that behind Holy Fires. So really what you want to do first is if we go back into Imperial Blaze, so this talent allows Holy Fire to not incur a cooldown on its next 2 casts. So what that means is we could come in here, if we can cast a Holy Fire, then we can go into a Chastise, and that will reset the cooldown on Holy Fire, and then you can get 2 more instant cast Holy Fires out. Now, I don't know if you guys saw the damage meters there, but it was like 600, 700,000 DPS right off the bat. It does a ton of burst damage. So you're going to be using that combo in both single target and AoE scenarios. And then we also have our Rhapsody here through Holy Nova. So let's just briefly talk about Holy Nova here. So Holy Nova is this AoE effect, and it kind of goes out almost like an Arcane Blast or an Arcane Explosion if you're familiar with Mage. And what this will do is it'll be a big explosion. It'll do a decent amount of damage and healing to everybody standing in it. Now, it's not very strong by itself. It's a pretty weak spell. But when you pair it with the Rhapsody talent here, so every 1 second, the damage of your next Holy Nova is increased by 20%, and its healing is increased by 20%, stacks up to 20 times. So when this gets to 20 stacks, you can come in here, just kind of go in between the dummies here. I'll press it. You can see I just did 2 million burst damage here. Well, I think it's actually 1,000,000 burst damage, but that's still very substantial to get that once every 20 seconds. And excuse me, I do believe it's actually once every 10 seconds you get Rhapsody up, not once every 20. Now, outside of that, we do have our Smite ability as well. So you just kind of smite an enemy for single target damage, which isn't too bad. This also has a chance to proc our Surge of Light, so not too terrible. And then during movement phases too, you can also kind of throw out your Shadow Word Pain. That does a decent amount of damage as well. However, me personally, for the most part, I don't use a whole bunch of Shadow Word Pain. I'm normally just in between Holy Nova and Holy Fire. Another thing as well is Holy Nova will reduce the cooldown of your Holy Word Chastise, so you can throw it out, right? Then you can go into some Holy Novas, and if you look at the cooldown on our Holy Word Chastise, you can see it is ticking down by a couple seconds each cast of Holy Nova. So yeah, that's really it for the damage rotation. I mean, what you're looking at here is going to be the AoE rotation, right? These 3 buttons here. And then for single target, you can kind of weave in Shadow Word Pain as well as your Smite. Okay, let's briefly talk about just macros, weak Rs in general. So in our options here, mouse overs have now been built into the game. So you can just press escape, go to options, come in here, type in the word mouse over, and just tick this box, mouse over cast. And this is going to be very useful because this is going to allow us to cast spells on our allies without having to click on them. So this saves us both clicks and cognitive overload. It's less things that we have to think about. So that's probably the first thing that I'd recommend to enable over all the macros and weak Rs we're going to talk about is to enable mouse over cast. It does make things much, much easier. So first thing we're going to talk about is Holy Word Sanctify. So if you remember from earlier, when you press Holy Word Sanctify, we had that sort of green circle on the ground. With this macro, what it does is this will put your Sanctify down at your cursor location. So if you kind of look where my cursor is really quick, we can drop a Sanctify and it'll just instantly cast where my cursor was. And that way I don't have to do an additional left quick. So just kind of like a quick cast. They also have a macro here for the Holy Fire into a Chastise into 2 more Holy Fires. If you just want to put it all into one button, this is not meant to necessarily replace the keybinds of your Holy Fire or Chastise individually, but this is a good way to kind of get the combo off, just to make sure you're not accidentally pressing a Chastise before a Holy Fire to get that cooldown reset. So to show you guys what this looks like, I have it on my R. We'll go into a Holy Fire, into a Chastise, into 2 more Holy Fires. You can see I just did all that in just one button. Then we also have a macro for our Angelic Feather. So very similar to what we're doing for our Holy Word Sanctify. Basically what you can do, put it down here on my keybinds, but you can put it down wherever your cursor's at. So you can just kind of drop it in front of an ally, right? You're going to be putting it on our allies due to our hero talent here, Divine Feathers. So you can drop it on an ally just wherever your cursor's at. And that's just, again, an additional click that we don't have to worry about. All right, that's really it for macros. And then for weak Rs, I really just have one here. This is called Dibs on Power Infusion. And the way that this is supposed to work, obviously it's a reminder to use Power Infusion, which is really nice. But the main thing it does is this will actually sync up with your party's major abilities. So for example, when like a Retribution Paladin will press their wings, this will pop up. And this will also put a text of the name on who you should put your Power Infusion on. So unfortunately, since I am not in a group, I can't really show you how this works. But basically what happens again is this icon pops up and it just pops up with the name on who to PI. Now, for the most part, that's not always a great thing, right? Because just because somebody uses a cooldown doesn't necessarily mean you need to be putting PI on them. But this is really good for like a reminder to actually use your PI. It's nice to kind of have it pop up. And typically what I do, especially when I'm kind of doing more pug runs, is I'm just putting PI on the same person over and over, because typically the damage is just so vastly different between everybody that you typically just put PI on the same person over and over. Now, if you are in a more organized group where the damage is more evenly spread across your party members, then, you know, maybe, yeah, you want to be rotating this in on cooldowns. But for the most part, I'm just putting PI kind of on the pumper. All right, guys, that's pretty much it for this guide. Please let me know if you guys, again, have any other macros that we could utilize. If you have any other weak Rs that might be useful for a Holy Priest. Let me know in the comments below. Trying to kind of grow my arsenal of macros and weak Rs across all healer specs. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed the video, also please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. I also have some socials in the description of the video if you guys want to check those out. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you on the next one.